to Typecast Heroes, where we believe typology saves the world. I'm Amanda Fogelson.
And I'm Jessie Miller, and today we are going to be wrapping up, we're almost to the end of the type series, where we cover each of the 16 types in depth. And today's type is the
ENTJ.
We've got a lot to say about you guys today. So, before we get started, Amanda's got some warnings for you.
Yes, just something we say in the beginning of every single video. Anyone can be anything. Again, we've said that from the start. It's our line. So we truly believe it, though. We really wholeheartedly believe that anyone can be and do anything. And the reason that we bring that up is because in this series, we are going to give examples of just behaviors and situations that ENTJs can find themselves in sometimes. And what we want to make sure that you all do as you're listening is really look inside of yourself and know who you are at your core and what your default setting is. And so that way, when you're hearing these examples in these situations, you don't automatically assume like, oh, I do that, or oh, I have that job, so I'm automatically an ENTJ. The whole point of this is to really look at yourself and start understanding the functions that the ENTJ uses and that you use, so you can start to figure out what your actual type is. So anyone can be anything.
And it's important to know your full type so that, as Amanda was saying, you can have the proper language to discuss what's going on in yourself, and you can explain yourself to yourself and to others. And if you're watching this and you think you might be an ENTJ, do keep in mind statistically, so Susan Storm just released an article, I don't know time as a construct, but she released an article talking about how the MBTI company came up with a breakdown of percentages of the population, and ENTJs are officially the rarest type. So, and especially if you're an ENTJ female. Now, I've had the pleasure of speaking to several ENTJ females, so I do know that they exist. I have interacted with them, but it is extremely uncommon. So keep that in mind as we go through this process.
Which also leads us to say that if you are truly an ENTJ and you have checked yourself, or even if you just want to find out if you really are and you're thinking you are, please come chat.
Please, 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 because all the other intuitives are almost to 100, except
the ENTJ.
The ENTJ. So please, please, if you know an ENTJ, send them our way.
And if you don't know what we're talking about when we're saying that we need 100, go watch Welcome to Typecast Heroes. It's our very first video we ever did. Give us some grace, please. It was pretty rough.
Please, ENTJs, give us some grace.
Yes. But you'll find out there what the project is and why 100 of the ENTJs is so necessary.
So let's go ahead and jump into the cognitive functions. So there's lots of resources on our channel, ENTJs, if you want to know more about any of the things that I'm about to say. So go over there. Go watch that before you dive into this. So we're going to talk about the cognitive stack, which is the first 4 functions that a person uses. So for the ENTJ, they have hero, extroverted thinking, hero TE. So extroverted thinking in the hero position is when you are all about the actions all day long, action oriented. You like to get all of the things done, and you like to do it in a good, efficient, effective way. It is often associated with bringing forth systems into the world. So trying to organize how a company runs is probably the most stereotypical part of the ENTJs, that they're the CEOs. But hero TE can also look like a mom, like a stay-at-home mom who is just very efficient in organizing with her children and like organizing their day or organizing like their lives. Or it could be a stay-at-home wife who's just very efficient with her time. And so she does a lot of charity work, and she could have very efficient, structured ways to run those organizations. Or running your own company. So there was a very young ENTJ that I talked to who runs her own coaching company. She's very young. She's like in her early 20s. And she's just got it all like efficient to the max. She has like, this is my 5, 10, 30-year goal. Like, this is how we're going to get there. And then they lay it out. So much. Yes, it's very, so it's her child function.
It's my child function. I just love it so much.
So she admires them and also wants to take care of them a little bit.
I do kind of want to, in the sense that like, I think what that looks like from my point of view is sometimes I feel like a dominant TE user can maybe be so obsessed with the efficiency of a system and they kind of forget about other things. I want to kind of be here to be like, hey, you can have fun and you can like go and learn about yourself too and do some personal growth and focus on yourself and less on this company or less on this project, which is not what they want to hear ever. But it's how it looks like to me to have a TE child. I also just really, really, really admire them. And every time I'm around them, I'm just like, I just get so giddy because I just want to know I want to know everything that's inside their brain. Like, I just love it so much.
It gets all the things done.
They
run the world.
Yeah.
And so extroverted thinking is outside. So that's an external judging process. So that is getting things completed. But then in the parent function, they have introverted intuition. So the parent function in all people is where we get our compulsions, our should statements. It keeps us balanced and it keeps us in line. So introverted intuition is this sort of internalized, holistic, abstract system. And so for a ENTJ, that means that when they are taking in information through this perceiving function, they're trying to align it to an abstract, like philosophical framework. And that looks very different from ENTJ to ENTJ. But it is a internal process. Some of the things that ENTJs have a tendency to do is skip that process, and they kind of just use it to get things done. So an ENTJ who is a CEO will use their NI to be able to try to see where the market is going, or to try to see that 10, 30, 50-year plan.
Yeah.
They'll try to see that forward into the future. They will also they'll have this big vision. I call it the NI vision. And it will drive them almost to the point of obsession of, I have to meet this goal. In fact, because it drives them so strongly, so many ENTJs, so many. It hurts me. It hurts my soul because I can't use their answers in the system. But anyway, so many ENTJs believe they are INTJs because of this, because they have these big visions, and then they think that because their visions are so grandiose and then they actually accomplish it, they think, oh man, I must be an INTJ because only an INTJ can have introverted intuition that's strong. INTJs are not as action driven as an ENTJ. They just aren't. Like, that is a huge tendency. And INTJs can go on to accomplish amazing things. However, you have to look at which one is your primary thing. When you encounter an environment, are you taking in information or are you acting quickly? So because ENTJs, it's like they almost can't help themselves. And I've talked to ENTJs.
It's like they hear something and in the middle of the sentence, they're like already off going to like fix
it. Yes. And it's frustrating sometimes. It can be frustrating for others because it's like they jump to action so quickly. And oftentimes those actions are the right ones to make. However, sometimes like a little bit of processing would be helpful, but it's like that is their drive. What drives them is the action. So I've talked to some ENTJs who say, I don't always want to be a leader. People thrust it upon me. Why do you think they're thrusting it upon you? Because you carry yourself with this kind of, I usually say that I can see TI and TE from a mile away. FI and FE are harder to differentiate, but I can see very quickly if I'm speaking to someone, even if they're on the internet and they're far away, can usually tell fairly quickly if they're using TI or TE with me, because I've talked to so many of them, I can see it. And it's like, oh,
especially like as a dominant.
Oh, it's just, I know you.
Yeah.
Don't try to tell me you're an INTJ. That's hilarious.
Also, the INTJ thing, one thing, and I don't know if we'll probably bring this up again later in the conversation, but a lot of ENTJs, I think, also think that they are introverted. Like, not just that their NI is strong, but they also feel like they're in their heads all the time. And that might be true, but what Jesse was saying before is that NI is bigger than just like
one thing.
Right. It's bigger than just doing the task at hand. It's so much bigger than that. And so even though you might feel as an ENTJ like, oh, well, I'm good at focusing on one thing and getting it done, that doesn't necessarily lend itself towards NI only. NI is bigger than that task.
Right. The accomplishment process of actually getting things done in the real world is attributed to extroverted thinking, not introverted intuition. And so introverted intuition is the kind of thing that is meant to balance you. So you feel like you should often be looking at the bigger picture. But because ENTJs, first off, you're so rare. First off, you tend to be so successful.
Mm-hmm.
I interviewed an ENTJ months ago, and his life had kind of gone to the wayside to an extent, and he became, like, he said that he was not very successful, and he got involved in some nefarious activities. But what he did then with the nefarious activities was he ran the nefarious activities. Like, he did it, he was telling me about his life and, like, how it had fallen apart, and he was like, now he runs it.
Mm-hmm.
He runs the show of the nefarious activities.
It's a natural thing. And I said this in one other video. I don't remember which one it is now. We're not saying that we actually wholeheartedly disagree with the fact that you have to be in a leadership position or that you have to be a CEO or anything like that. You don't have to do any of these stereotypes. However, you should realize, though, that you naturally give off this vibe of just being able to handle it and to be able to get everything done. Like, that is just a natural
That's your default.
vibe. Yeah, that's
like,
your
literally
default
what
setting.
we say
Yes.
is that is your default.
Yes.
Like, if you are around people and your default is let's get this done.
Yep.
If you are by yourself and you are working towards something, you're building a framework.
Yep.
You're reading books of self-improvement. You're doing all of the things, even though you're by yourself and in your head, you are acting.
Yep.
You are doing something external. That is extroverted thinking in the beginning. And if I can't get anything else across, because it seems like every time I do an all call for people to interview, I get at least one INTJ who really is an ENTJ. And I swear, if I had all of you who think you're an INTJ and you're actually an ENTJ,
You're well over 100.
if you all came to me and you told me that, I could pull your interviews from the process and put them in the right box, but I can't because you make me sad. Okay, moving on. All right, so again, because you're all about the action, what you tend to do is you skip over your introverted intuition process, except for in the ways that it helps you. Society usually rewards you for getting all these actions done.
Yep.
So what you do is you jump down into your child function. So in Jungian thought, a lot of people argue over and over again about these functions, but I personally like John Beebe's interpretation, which is that these are the arms of consciousness. So extroverted sensing in your third function, your child, and your introverted intuition parent function, you use them almost equally. It's just the way they manifest are different. So the extroverted sensing child function is a little playful. It's playful in everyone. It can be a little bratty, kind of like throw a temper tantrum. The most iconic thing about the child function is that it is up and down. It's like it'll be really playful one moment and then really offended and get its feelings hurt the next. But because ENTJs are so action oriented, extroverted sensing is when you are in the moment and you are examining all of the concrete data and details of the world around you. So it's like, let's get all this done. Let's stay in the moment. Let's forget the big picture, because the introverted intuitive parent, it's not always so fun to introspect. And especially if you've been getting all of these things accomplished, you may never give yourself time to really look at yourself. And then you just kind of want to stay there. You just want to keep jumping from extroverted thinking down to extroverted sensing and get everything done and never introspect truly. Never take a moment when you're not doing something or you're not quiet so that you can think about your next goal. Because that's something else I see with a lot of ENTJs. When they're quiet, and even if they're thinking about themselves, they're thinking about themselves in a way that they can self-improve. Or they're thinking about themselves so that they can learn how to get to the next step. Or they're thinking about their career. But what they're not doing, what introverted intuition or introverted feeling, which is when we're going to get to in just a second, what they're not doing is they're not looking at their actions and examining, why did I do this? Not why did I do this because it helped me meet a goal, but like, what are the implications of my actions? What does this mean to me? Why
did I pour so much into this? Like,
why does it even matter to me?
Right. Or are you just going with the flow and just like you have your blinders on to anything else and you're literally just focused on getting everything accomplished and fixing everything that's in your line of sight?
And it can make it so that you don't know what you value. Now, I've met many ENTJs who can tell you what they value, but that's because they've done the work. Oftentimes, the people who are accepting of that ENTJ title who come to TCH are usually in their 40s or 50s. I don't have a whole lot of interaction with younger ones every now and again. I get them. But for the most part, it's older ones because that's when they do the self-growth stuff. Because before that, it's all about getting everything accomplished.
Get it done.
And when you get older, what happens is your introverted feeling, your inferior function, comes out to play. So the inferior function in all people is the one that we are defensive about. It's the one that we know deep down inside we probably should pay more attention to, but we don't know how, we don't understand it very well, and we can act really aggressive about it or defensive. So sometimes for ENTJs, people will say, well, you're heartless. You don't know what you're doing. Like, you don't know what you value. You don't know what you believe in. And the ENTJ will get really upset because they already know that. They already know, they don't think that they're heartless and they don't think that they don't have values, but they already know somewhere that they don't spend time in that place. And so you telling them that is not helpful. And it's probably not entirely accurate either. Everybody who has an inferior function, if they give themselves time to introspect and to really introspect, they'll know that that is a blind spot for them. So ENTJs, sometimes this can come out as, FI values are stupid.
Yep.
People who value things without logic are dumb. Those people don't make sense. Those people who are sitting there whining about all the things. And I've seen so many
people who like go after their
this.
gut instinct, like don't make sense. That's a stupid way to make a choice.
Yes, that happens. And so let's talk about some stereotypes of the ENTJ now that we've talked about all of their functions. So ENTJs, we hear that they are robotic. Also, just like we have with a lot of thinkers, that they're heartless, that they are cruel. I also had a weird stereotype that they don't think for themselves because they're doing all of the actions.
That's just the weirdest.
That was a weird assertion.
Yeah.
But extroverted thinking is not that you can't read everybody's mind. So stop. Please stop. Stop projecting that definition out into the world because
it is wrong.
It's just inaccurate, guys. Like, I understand that all of this is subjective and that we argue about it all day long, but if you are trying to stay true to like Jungian theory, you can't read nobody reads anybody's mind, but there's that idea that extroverted thinking can read people's mind, and that's silly. Extroverted thinking is like that. It's that crowdsourced logic or understood systems, but it's still up to the ENTJ to interpret that.
Right.
So it's not like they're magically reading everybody's mind and they all of a sudden know what everybody's thinking. It's like they're looking at this is the way things are done, and then they are taking it into account. But it is still their interpretation.
Right. Just like everything is to everyone. Like, no one can read someone else's mind. I mean, kudos to you if you can, but that's
and I'm magic.
It's not typical of the average person. So no, like that particular comment was one of those that just like made me shake my head a little bit because it's just not right. We just talked about TI being like it's an introverted thinking thing, but at the same time, where do thoughts come from? Like they don't just like magically appear in your brain. It's not something that's like never been talked about, never been heard before, nothing like that. Like it all comes from something. So don't assume that just because they are extroverted thinking that they don't have thoughts of their own, that these aren't their own ideas, that they must have heard it somewhere else and they're just putting it into place. Nothing like that. Like it's still their own thoughts, their own opinions, their own systems. It's still something that they are allowed to own. They may not be as emotional about it because they aren't owning it as an introvert, but it's still theirs. Like, don't try to take that away from them. And yeah, I don't know why I just got on my soapbox there, but
I do, because you're protecting your TE child, because we literally just talked about this.
And I just want to protect them because they're awesome.
So the stereotype, so that they're heartless, that they have to run CEOs, that they have to do. So again, a lot of ENTJs will say that like, well, they can't be an ENTJ because I'm not doing anything big. Or I just interviewed an ENTJ who is in her 30s and she's a mom and she's not working. And, you know, she was really surprised because she came to us with no background in MBTI and it's like, oh my God, like you are an ENTJ. She was really surprised because she's familiar with the behavioral stereotypes a little bit. And you can still have these functions. just because you would be good at something doesn't mean that you are naturally drawn toward it. So for her, like her TE systems and her NI vision was for her family. That is what she wanted to do. Like it was for her family and it was for herself. And so just because TE NI lends itself toward big picture things, it doesn't mean you have to. So something to keep in mind. The role of society when it comes to ENTJs is first, ENTJs can come off as kind of controlling sometimes. They can also come off as arrogant at times. And they can come across as introverted to an extent because they realize that a lot of times it's not worth their time. This is something Amanda says about her dad, who's an ENTJ, is that it's not worth his time to explain something to you if he thinks that you're not going to get it or you're gonna.
That's probably any strong TE user, honestly. Well, no, that's not right. Well, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a TE child, but my TE, because I have a very strong ENTJ father, my TE, I feel like is just abnormally strong. And so, and I also enjoy it. So I strengthen it. But anyways, that's the thing is like they, especially if they know that they're the ones who are running the situation, and no one else is going to step up and even try to prove them wrong or try to get them to see it from a different point of view or anything like that. Like they want that though. They want you to come up with ideas and be like, hey, there's this, because again, their TE isn't saying, I personally say that this system is the best one and you're going to hurt my feelings if you disagree with it. That's not how it is. So if you come up to them and show them a better way, for them, they're going to like take it and run with you on it. They're not going to fight it just because it wasn't their idea. I mean, maybe some will, but so will so many other human beings. So,
yeah, most of them want to be shown the correct way to do something. They want you to challenge their ideas. They want you to show them a better way. That's something that I've talked to ENTJs about, where they're like, you know, if you can prove me wrong,
yes,
I will love you forever.
Good luck proving them wrong, but
it can be done.
If you can, do it. They want to, and they also want to learn more. They are seeking that knowledge. So it's helpful.
And they can have NI visions for good. So like, again, that's another stereotype. So society, stop judging them for this too. Society thinks like, oh, well, if they want a CEO, then they must be like really cruel and heartless and they just want to like take over the world. No, because they can have, especially the ones who have leaned into their introverted feeling process. I mean, they can run charities. They can run schools. They can run hospitals. They can run all sorts of things that do good in the world. It doesn't have to be like this idea of like, what's his name? Rockefeller, or like somebody who's going to like ruin the world with their corporation. Like that doesn't have to be the ENTJ thing. I really feel like
if more good people in the world were in those positions, the world would be a better place. The same way as a lot of bad people being in these positions have made the world a little bit more bad. Like it's just how it happens. So let the good ENTJs run it. Let it happen. Don't automatically assume that they're going to be cold and heartless and constantly try to push them away just because they may be really strong in their opinion or really strong in being able to prove a system that works that may be against what you think is right.
So what's your personal growth advice for the ENTJ?
So normally I would say to not skip your parent function. That's always the one that I tend to lean towards, that we tend to lean towards because it just is so easy to skip it. And I do still feel that way about the ENTJs and I think you guys are really good at using it, but I think you use it to accomplish the things that are sitting there right in front of you and not so much like big picture depth, you know. I think it's more of just like, I need to get this checklist done, I need to get these tasks accomplished, or maybe 1 to 2 year goals or something like that. I think you guys have so much more potential in NI, so lean into that. But also, if you are a younger ENTJ and you're getting kind of like a head start on kind of learning more about yourself through these cognitive functions, then I would really encourage you to start looking into FI. And, you know, there's a time and a place for that, especially with your inferior function, because it's not a fun one to go down and to learn about and to try to grow in. So don't put the pressure on yourself to understand it and lean into it. but also just kind of know that it is there and that be aware of it, I guess is what I'm saying. So that when it does want to come out and it could help you, then let it. It's, again, not something that you want to focus on and lean into and strengthen and do all of your research about, but I think it is a good idea to at least know that it's there.
Because being human is hard.
And hopefully this makes it just a little bit easier.
Thank you for watching this video, and if you are an ENTJ, please come this way.
Comment below or message us on Facebook, Reddit, Instagram, or Discord, and Jesse will get you all hooked up. And also, like I said before, if you are new to TCH and you have not watched our very first video, Welcome to Typecast Heroes, please go do that, as we reference the whole 100 of the ENTJs in the beginning of this video. So necessary, though. Also, if you happen to have any ES friends in your life, ESTJs, ESFJs,
Please.
ES anyone's,
ESTPs.
please just send them over. That's all.
That's it.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Let's gather around the type fire and sing our type fire song. Our MBTITYPOLOGY song. And if you feel uncomfortable, then know there's nothing wrong.